Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. From
And
Germany, good night. Yeah, it's 10 o'clock our time.
late night. We're here. And today, what we're going to do is we are going to see if you've been doing your homework because
Oh,
we talked a while back about communication and we said there are four main communication styles. Remember? Assertive, passive, aggressive,
mhm.
and passive aggressive. We talked about what style applies to each of us usually. I think I said I'm assertive usually. Mom, you said you were
Kind of passive.
kind of passive.
Yeah.
And Aunt Lauda, you said you were,
Assertive.
yes, yes, generally assertive. So I want to
Generally.
see what you've been doing to either strengthen your communication style if you lean towards assertive, and what you've been doing to work on your communication style if you're passive. And then we want to look at the impact that it had, what it felt like to strengthen or change the way you communicate, and then the impact you saw it have. So that is the plan for today. Does that sound good?
Perfect.
Very good.
All right, here we go. So we're going to start with, I'm going to ask each of you if there is a situation that comes to mind since we last talked where you intentionally strengthened the way you communicate or changed the way you communicate. And I will start with mom.
Okie dokie. Well, when we talk about communication, that as I was growing up in Mexico, the tradition or style was that you wouldn't be too assertive. You wouldn't say things that were not proper, like you were a little bit under certain guidelines, per se. So, growing up like that in the 50s and early 60s, when I came to the States, it was difficult for me to be that assertive or clear. If I wouldn't understand something, I will kind of, okay, keep it to myself. I will find out later. And of course, I had to learn in especially now lately that we have been talking about it, I tried to be more assertive. I understood that you have to speak clearly. And if you don't understand something, the logical thing is to ask and make sure that you understood. So, like the other day, visiting my doctor, I found myself asking questions that I wouldn't usually ask. He was happy to explain. You cannot expect people to know what you're thinking. You have to say whatever was not clear. I asked, being respectful. We don't have to be disrespectful, but we have to clear things if we don't hear, if we don't understand, that worked fine because I found out things that I really wanted to find out. And people might think, well, we don't understand why you were not asking. And that's because of the way you grew up.
And that's an interesting point when you bring that up because in my field with therapy, what I came across a lot in working with Latino families in particular was they always saw us as expert. And I think a lot of times deferred to what do we think, right? The common meme is us saying, well, what do you think, right? But I think I found myself more intentionally saying, no, what do you think? This is you're the expert in your life, and that's, I think, when I was younger, certainly as a therapist, was a common thing that I came across was the client deferring to me constantly. Obviously, we've got professional experience and knowledge, right, that we use to guide people through some of the challenges they're navigating, but I genuinely believe people are the experts in their own life. And that was tough for a lot of the Latino families I worked with to understand. When I'd ask them a question, why are you asking me the question? Don't you know? And so that's good to hear that you realize you reflected on the importance of you getting clarification on things, right? Because especially when you're talking about medical health related items, right? You want to be very clear on what are you telling me? What do I need to do? Those kinds of things. And so I'm glad to hear that you applied what we talked about in that situation in particular. We'll come back to what it was like for you and the impact you think it had. But I'm going to go to Aunt Lauda now to describe a situation where you either changed or strengthened the way you communicate.
Well, to me, I think I explained back then about I feel that I'm assertive person to ask the question directly, and go through the communication, especially. One of the things that I was weak on is like paying full attention to this person when we are, talking about it. So I noticed myself that every time I talk to anybody, like a conversation, I'm conscious enough to say, let's put attention what we're talking about, right? And so we can follow up what we're doing. I've been here almost a month in Europe, and it's been quite experienced in communication talking about it, because in order to practice that, first of all, I have certain things against me, which is the language, right? So there are things with my friends that I talked in English and things like that. I can see, that we have better communication, talking about certain points that we probably, since long time ago that we haven't seen each other, we probably didn't refer it. And now we're more like clear, and re-asking the question, I mean, am I getting this right? Things like that. But it's funny, I just want to add that recently I tried to, I did claim one of the towers of the cathedral in Colonia. Goodness gracious, I was totally against that, right? But my friend said, no, nothing's going to happen. You relax. It's going to be beautiful view. So here I was like, fighting again. And I say, no, I can't because I'm afraid, right? But he explained to me very calmly, and say, well, this is what the good things you're going to find. Here I am climbing the stair, which is, like a circle one, and the same stair goes up and down for both people. So you can see different people there, languages, going up and down. But there is actually a global language, which is the signs, right? So you can see people afraid, and you just going, go, like on signs, trying to see you're going to make it and things like that. It was really funny because there is a certain point that you get together in a more pace, and I would say that, and even kids were there. So, you hear all these stories, and people look at you like, I'm so afraid, and I was one of those, right? But it's so funny because the communication, I mean, even though we don't speak the language, right? We were just like saying, go, and things like that. Oh, yes, you made it.
Yeah,
Very
the
nice.
nonverbals, right?
No verbal.
Yeah. And I think that's quite an experience. And we've been talking about as you've been traveling, just experiencing the world and what makes us different, but also what unifies us. And I think that is an interesting illustration of paying attention to the things that connect us and the nonverbals. I'm sure there were a lot of other people who were hesitant to climb, uh, but it was nice to see that everyone's encouraging each other, right?
Exactly. Once you're there is nothing you can do, right? Because you look up and this thing is keep going. You look down and the thing is like that. So you're stuck.
You're
And the thing is,
there.
people start, I mean, you see so many different kind of people, right? Going up and down. And at first they're very excited. I was shaking at the first step I did. I was really not convinced to go up 150 meters. But of course, my friend was like, calm down, you're going to see the best view in the world and this and that. And he's a fireman. Of course, for him, it's like, I'm going to this. And I go, excuse me, I can't because my heart is beating like this. But I say, no, you can, breathe in. I'm going to regret it. So you see people, like they're really sweating.
Yeah.
It's funny. But
Yeah.
once you're up there,
That's high.
It was high. It was high. And I think that's a good topic for another day too, in terms of overcoming our fears, right?
Oh, that's a good topic.
So I think that's a future topic we'll cover. Because certainly on my travels with mom, there have been moments where there are question marks of, do we do this? Because it feels risky, and what pushed us to decide to do it, and what pushed some of us not to do it.
We have to conquer our
Are we
fears.
communicating right?
So,
Funny.
so looking at the scenarios you presented, I want to talk about what it was like to either practice a new skill like you did, Mom, or to strengthen a skill that we already had to practice more assertive communication. So I want to go back to your sample, Mom, of asking questions of your doctor and listening to the feedback and not being afraid to ask more questions. What was it like for you to do something that you weren't used to doing?
Well, I have to tell you, it was great. In one really things, how didn't I do this before? because I knew. And talking about this, I recall a cousin of ours she's very outspoken and she asks questions for everything. Sometimes I would say that's asking too much. But anyway, she would tell me, what kind of medicine, for example, he gave you? Well, the name is so and so. And what is that for? Well, I'm not sure. He gave it to me for, and you didn't ask. I remember her asking me so often, you didn't ask. And if you don't understand the explanation, ask for a clearer explanation. It's your body. You need to know, well, that's true. So I feel great for the first time in some time. I feel great because I knew what was happening, the medicine I'm having, exactly what it is, what side effects. Sometimes they put it in your medicine, sometimes not. And maybe some doctors are very clear and tell you all the details, but others expect that if you have any questions, you ask. So I feel great. And I feel like I had more information that probably I should have had before. And the more I do it, like in everything else, the easier it gets.
It's about practice, right? Well, and I think I heard what you said included something to the effect of it almost feels like you're inconveniencing somebody else by asking more questions. But I liked your cousin's response, which is it's your body. It's this is about you. So how is it an inconvenience to them? And frankly, that's what they're there for, right? Is to help take care of you, and they need to know the impact on you or the concerns you have to know if there's another solution for you, right? So I'm glad that it felt positive because that helps reinforce you doing it again and in other situations too. How about for you, Aunt Lauda?
Well, there was a situation here in Europe that really made me feel good because I went with friends, a couple, and went to Prague with them. We share an apartment, a flat that was supposed to have two rooms. And all of a sudden, there was one room with a bed and then a sofa right in the kitchen to consider the second room. So here, imagine just that, no? Especially, Anyway, this thing, again, my trip is being wonderful. I do not want to complain anything, but I was like, hey, excuse me, we're paying the same amount of, the three of their couple, and I was supposed to have my room. And I go, this is not right. I'm not going to sleep, in a sofa in the kitchen. So anyway, I explained to them, I said, you know what? I don't think it's right. I don't think it's right because we share the price, right? We share the cost. You need to investigate this with the person. What they promise you two rooms. Anyhow, to make the story short, you know what I did? I said, you know what? We spent 2 nights there, 3 days, 2 nights. So the first night we arrived there around 7, right? 7 p.m. I mean, at that hour, what are you going to do? Where are you going to find a place different? So I say, just stay. But the following day, I say, no way. I'm not going to support the situation, right? So I told them. And of course, they say, we cannot reach them. And I don't know what the situation was there. But I say, well, I'm sorry, I'm moving to a hotel. So here we are. I'm not comfortable where I am, and actually I'm not sleeping well. So I'm moving to a hotel. And since next day I was going to fly to Budapest, I might as well just get closer to the airport. So that's what I did, right? Without really making it big, but also not only, caring about myself, my accommodation. And that's the first thing I thought about. So
Yeah, no, that's a really good example. Although the bed in the kitchen gave you easy access to snacks. So
yeah, if I couldn't sleep, I could eat, right?
But
Very good.
that's a good example. And that's the complexity of traveling with other people too, right? Because obviously you try to make it as convenient as possible where you can share space, maybe save costs too in that. And sometimes you have those unexpected surprises of
Yes.
the accommodations not being the way as promised. And it was important for you for comfort and for physical comfort, emotional comfort, all those things to get what was promised to you. And so you lean towards this is important to me, and even if it's an extra cost, this is what I'm going to do. And so an important decision for you to make.
Yeah, that was one of the things. And I think I felt good, like your mama says, after that, you're like I was in the hotel and I say, I don't regret it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to spend another night with them. I'm sorry, but I'm okay, comfortable in my room. And next day I was going to fly anyway. So
Yeah.
that's the story. You feel comfortable, you feel better that way.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and we've been talking all along about your trip. It's been about really valuing yourself in this process, right? Valuing your time, measuring out your experience in a flexible way, and also feeling comfortable in the space in between doing things, right? And so that was important for you to move in that direction.
Yeah, exactly.
So I want to wrap this up by talking about what the impact was on others of you communicating the way you did. And so going back to you, mom, and maybe this was a new experience for your doctor for you to ask more questions. But what was your perception of the impact on your doctor or that relationship once you asked more questions?
Well, that's very good thing to say because he was surprised but very happily because at a point he told me, "Well, I thought you were not very interested in your health because you were said, okay, this is your medicine, fine." And he said, "So it was, I'm surprised that you're asking all these questions the first time I did." And I said, "Well, I understand that one has to make sure what we're taking. More than anything, if we have a doubt, they need to know."
Mm-hmm.
And another thing is if there are other options, because I recall when I was going to have my hip surgery, and the doctor there, orthopedist, another doctor, was explaining about the situation. Oh, I would kept on saying, "Oh, okay, okay. If you, sweetie guys, my dear daughters, were not there," and said, "Well, my Joanna said, I think, is there any other option?" It had never occurred to me to ask that. You're going to have surgery. Oh, okay. Well, something
Sure.
so
We're gonna
simple.
open you up. Okay.
Something so simple. So Joanna says, "Well, is there any other option?" He explained the options, and then with everything cleared, you make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
But don't just say yes, yes. So my regular doctor was happy. He said, "I'm glad you're asking these questions," because actually he always would say after the end of the appointment, "You have any questions?" No. Well, you need to have questions, and especially if you're not sure. But like you say, you feel, I don't want to bother him, or like doubt that he's a doctor and he knows.
Yeah.
No,
I
ask,
need
and
to, and I'm glad that that was a response you got because I think that that also shows a quality doctor, right? It's a good test if you're able to ask questions and have a conversation versus if you ask questions and then you're silenced or it's just do it, which I think is
exactly.
rare, but I'm not going to say it doesn't happen. And so I'm glad that was the outcome you had. I want to share a side story because it triggers this thought for me. So, mom developed these food allergies in a very scary way, we'll say where her neighbor found her like sick and then got her help and then she got connected to this doctor. I won't say the name, but I want to extend appreciation to the allergist. And so so after one of the follow-ups with this allergist, mom said she was given an EpiPen, which is, if you have a reaction, you use this pen so that you come out of the experience from that. And so I asked questions about, well, why are you getting an EpiPen? What exactly is going on? I had all these questions for mom, and mom, as she has said, not being one to ask questions, says, I don't know. So I said, okay, I need to be in your next appointment with this doctor, and he does it via telehealth. And so I was in the background, mom is in the camera, and I'm throwing questions at her. So through her, I'm having her ask questions. And then all of a sudden the doctor says, "Well, you remember the notes that I gave you? I wrote the notes and I printed them and I gave them to you. Don't you have those somewhere?" And literally on the table we had set the computer on is a stack of papers. And we go through the papers and she says, "Oh, these things?"
Oh, that's true.
Oh, sorry, you're talking about these? I never read them.
Poor dear doctor.
So
Just
me in the
imagine how,
background, I'm
oh my
first red from anger because I'm like, nothing was explained to you. And then I'm red from embarrassment because I'm like, are you serious? You had notes like 2 feet away from me that I could have read, and known exactly what's going on. So,
did
lesson,
you apologize to the doctor by any chance?
I did. And
And
every
the
time
funny
she,
thing, the funny thing is that ever since, because he felt kind of bad, like you didn't understand. And he's another doctor that would say, you have any questions? I gave you these notes. So, anyways, every time I have an appointment, he says, please tell your daughter hello for me.
No.
and I'm like,
But you
That
please
know,
tell
everything
him
is
I'm
okay.
sorry. Tell him I'm sorry again.
again and again and again. I would like to
Unnecessary.
I would like to add a comment about that, and I'm glad that we took the, we're taking the point that we're going to do another podcast about fear. But I think what happens to your mom is that she gets so fear about the outcome that she forgets about the real story now. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So it's funny. I think that's my impression with Anna. I don't know, Anna. You correct me if that's wrong, but you blocked yourself, and the rest is nothing. It's just like something's happening to me. I don't know what's gonna be tomorrow, and you just forget.
Well, no, well, there is the example, for example, that I should have said when he said, you have any questions? Either if I really didn't have any questions and he's telling me, here are the notes because he puts everything down and whatnot. Uh, my question should be, this is referring to what I have to do, right? No, I don't ask that. So I get the papers and I guess I forget the papers. And then, poor doctor.
And
Here I
put your
am with 20 questions. They're all in the notes.
Do you remember? I remember now.
oh, by the way.
All for not asking clearly.
But I think you're right. I think in different situations, different emotions play into the way we respond, right? Maybe in that situation, health situations, especially as you're older and health can get more complicated, there can be a fear of what's down the line or how bad it's going to be. Sometimes we even anticipate, like, oh, they're going to give me bad news and they're going to tell me I have to do all these things, right? And sometimes that being paralyzed literally keeps you from hearing what you're being told, right? So you're not processing what is being told to you. And I think that is dangerous, of course, right? Because you're missing important information. I appreciate doctors who do notes at the same time they're meeting with you and can give them to you because then, like this doctor, if you don't hear it in the moment, right, you have something to go back to and look at. And I do think, and we're going to have another pod where we talk about having aging parents and partnering with them in their health issues, right? Because I think, and I know that's something Atlanta you were very involved with grandma, it's important to have people who support you in those processes because sometimes fear is a big part of that phase of life, right? And so I think that's a good point, Atlanta, with respect to mom's situation. But I'm glad you're doing better and asking questions. That's makes me feel better about you going to these appointments.
Waking up.
Working on it.
Waking
You're
up
working
and
on it.
talking.
Good,
Please.
good. It's
If in
working. It's
doubt, ask.
working.
Exactly, exactly. Now,
Very good.
Lauda, for you, let's go back to the situation of changing your room, going to a hotel. What impact did that have on your friends and saying like, this is what I'm going to do. I need to do this for me.
Exactly. It was really something important, and out of because I haven't seen them for a while. I mean, it took them probably, I don't know, years. And of course, we were having a great time at then. But the husband, my friend Mel, he came to me and said, "I'm so sorry." He apologized, and I said, and he felt really bad. My girlfriend, the wife, she was like, "Are you really moving? Why are you moving?" we're getting together here. So I think when I made the decision and I speak up for me, they both realized that, probably at the moment they were like, what? We're together. Why not you're leaving? But then he understood that that was not correct, right? This is because he came to me and said, this is not a room. So he got the situation very well. So I think at the end, they did understand.
Yeah.
They left and again they apologize and I think they both understand. I'm going back with them anyways before a week before I leave for good to Mexico, so I will see them again. But it's like they wanted me to share this time, but it made me think that is this the correct thing to do, like just take off. But then I realize and I say, well, listen to you. Are you comfortable? Are you okay? What else can you do about it? You're gonna suffer an extra night? Sorry, I can't.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
and if you would have stayed in that, let's say you were in the bed in the kitchen, you
yes,
probably would have experienced such physical discomfort that would have played out into that time in your vacation, right? Because you probably wouldn't
exactly,
sleep well, all of those
exactly.
things.
That
And
was the last thing that wanted me to happen. A migraine or not sleep well, then I would feel uncomfortable and whatnot. And I started actually, well, that was one of the reasons that I talked to them and said, you know what? I'm starting to feel kind of strange physically, because I'm not sleeping well. So I don't want this to go farther, and spoil the rest of my trip or the rest of the day here.
yeah.
Anyhow, but yeah, it went out okay finally.
Yeah, it sounds like it does. And I think a lot of the response was, like you said, because you don't see them often. And so I think, especially when you're planning trips together, right, there's this image of how it's going to go and just spending all this time with each other. And that's part of the
Yes,
experience. But I think ultimately they both understood that that was important for you to
yes,
physically feel good, have a good space to sleep in,
exactly.
all those things. So it worked
Yeah,
out.
it worked out for me.
Yeah.
Whenever you speak up for yourself, you will get good outcome.
Yeah. And I think a big piece of it is really making it clear how it's important to you, right?
Exactly.
And the value it has for you and why you're making that decision. Or like in your case, mom, it's important for you to ask questions because you value yourself, right? And you want to know how this is impacting you physically. And before you make decisions that do impact even your physical being, like you want to know exactly what it's for, or is there some alternative, right? It shows interest in taking care of yourself.
Exactly.
And I think people that care about you can't dispute that, right? If they care about you.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I'm glad that you both are practicing things to improve communication with others, but really to take care of yourselves. And it's brought up some other things we'll talk about down the line. I like the idea of looking at the way feelings influence the way we handle certain situations, whether that's fear or something else. And I like the idea of risk taking when you're on vacation. Like what fuels you making decisions to do something that feels not necessarily great or a little scary, but the plus and
One
minuses
thing,
of choosing one way or the other, which allowed that was a pretty amazing journey up the
yes.
cathedral.
Very courageous.
The cathedral was incredibly courageous. I actually thought about your trip to New York, but anyhow, I was like, this is, I have to done. And I have to say, I feel comfortable being with my friend, because of course, he was pushing me to, you'll be okay, let's stop here and breathe in, breathe out, but my heart was like this. And the first thing that I thought is like, I don't want to look down. I don't want to look up. I don't know what I'm going to do. But I got it. It was very nice. Like you say, it gives you a good sense of yourself. What you do. Things that you can dare do that.
Hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And it was worth it.
it was
Yeah.
actually the view was amazing. The whole city, the river of the Rhine River that crosses the city.
Mhm.
So yeah, you
Beautiful.
should put those pictures. It's really beautiful. It's worth it.
Mhm.
For sure. Well,
Yeah.
Wonderful.
I am curious what other people think about this conversation. And since our last conversation, if people have tried some of the things we've talked about to strengthen the way they communicate with others, if it's made them really reflect on how they communicate with others and why they communicate that way with some people and in different ways with others. We definitely encourage people to like if they liked this conversation and subscribe because clearly we're going to talk about a lot more stuff. And before we go, we'll do quick introductions. My mom,
Ana,
my tia,
Laura.
and I'm Joanna. And we want to remind everyone, whether it's good, bad, or funny, what?
leave
Live
it
it
up.
up.
Laura.